What's going on, everybody? I was asked multiple times through messages and on comments and through email to talk about net neutrality and to cover it because it is a very big event. And when it comes to the internet, the open and free internet, it is a huge asset to the people of the world. It is power to the people. It's a main reason I'm able to do what I'm doing, and millions of people are able to succeed, create businesses, and compete with major corporations and people who are born into wealth. So I'm going to talk about net neutrality in about 10-15 seconds once people roll in. As always, if you would like, you can follow me on Instagram at DreamRare. You can follow me on Twitter at Legendary Energy. My website is legendary.vision. It has all my links. And after this, I'm going to post my email list if you would like to sign up, and my donation link if you'd like to support my news analysis. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Just give me about 5 or 10 more seconds because I want to wait for everyone to explain net neutrality. I did my research. I hear what everyone's talking about, and I want to talk about both sides of the controversy. Yes, there are two sides. Yes, there is a lot that even the most conservative or the most anti-net neutrality newspapers are not saying. There's some things that the pro-net neutrality companies and newspapers are not saying, so I'm going to cover that all right now. To start it off, this is something that I've seen very few people talk about. When it comes to the word net neutrality, in theory, of course, keep the net neutral. It's got to be, you don't want certain service providers to be able to boost their internet and make certain websites faster. So when you go to certain websites, they go faster, and then other websites, you go load slower. It sounds like a totally lopsided internet. So you would think if that's what net neutrality is, that's the number one thing that everybody's concerned about. They're saying, if net neutrality leaves, then it's going to be so lopsided like that. So it would be a pretty short piece of legislation, you would think, right? Wrong. In 2015, Obama passed the net neutrality regulation, which was 332 pages, and I hear nobody talking about it. There's actually a picture of a Jeep Pie protesting it, holding it up back in 2015, saying, hey guys, it's 332 pages. So like with everything, even when you get a contract, say you're a musician or whatever, and they give you this 50-page contract, it doesn't take that much words to say what you need to say. So I just usually shut down contracts like that. I'm like, you can reword it so it makes sense and doesn't have all these loopholes. For what people think net neutrality is, there's no way, shape, or form that it should have 332 pages, but it does. And the second point when it comes to net neutrality is this regulation that he wants to take apart. It's not something that's been around for the entirety of the internet, and the internet arguably, in my opinion, was more free at a certain time. I would say it's maybe less free than ever. This 332-page regulation was passed in 2015. So if you remember 2014 and 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010, all of the regulations that he's trying to pull back weren't even around then. And, a lot of these problems I don't remember being around, and very few. So that's something to think about. I'm going to get to the popular side of this argument, but this is the counter, controversial. Of course, everything's a controversy because no one's able to have a basic, simple, intelligent conversation. And even when I posted about it, a lot of people said anomaly, like hold off on that. And that's why I want to thank you guys so much. I have some of the most brilliant, intelligent, cool followers and supporters, where even if I maybe make a misstep or say something that doesn't tell the full story, you can almost always find it in the comment section. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate not just your presence and your shares and your likes and comments. I really do appreciate your analysis when you're not just screaming at each other senselessly. That annoys me and stresses me out. But when you have good, intelligent insight, I appreciate it. So just to recap, the net neutrality thing that Ajit Pai, the FCC chairman, wants to repeal is a 332-page plan. Always be wary if everybody thinks net neutrality means, no service providers can go up and down and they can't, make the traffic go faster or slower. There's a lot more to what it is if it's 332 pages. Believe that. Another thing that I want to, before I get into the popular side of this argument, that I want to say that Ajit Pai said, that's 1,000% correct. He said when it comes, because Twitter, Facebook, and Google, they're all saying, keep net neutrality, keep net neutrality, keep net neutrality. Should be a massive red flag to people if Facebook, Google, and Twitter, three of the biggest conglomerates, between those three, they have so much power, so much control, and they're a large portion of who is actually rigging the internet when it comes to opinion and free flow of information. I've been saying for the past 2 years, they're all doing a disservice to honesty, to truth, to justice, to unity, to optimism, all of these things. Ajit Pai said, when it comes to a free and open internet, Twitter is part of the problem. The company has a viewpoint and it uses that viewpoint to discriminate. It's 1,000% true. So I say all the time before I get into the main argument and weigh out both sides, there's nothing free about the current state of the internet, There's nothing unopen and free flow of information. Twitter, Facebook, and Google, like Ajit Pai said, they have a certain viewpoint. And to be honest, it's not a very good viewpoint. It's not even like a classical liberal, like, oh my God, we're all about justice and equality. It's like an alt-left, like fringe, everything outside of my opinion must be Russian perspective, and they jam it down people's throats. So Twitter, Facebook, and Google are pro-net neutrality. Ironically, they are the most lopsided companies when it comes to news. And yes, they are news websites now. They push one viewpoint down people's throats, and it's very rarely honest. It's very rarely balanced. Nothing that they ever post will ever even be like half as decent and half as balanced as this post is. And I'm not doing that to big up myself. It's just pretty embarrassing that I have to sit here and, be the beacon of reason because they can't seem to show both sides of a lot of perspectives. And to continue on this viewpoint, this is the, hey, net neutrality is actually not as good as everybody is saying viewpoint. This is in the Daily Wire, which I believe is owned or, run by Ben Shapiro, who I want to debate soon. I think I could beat him in a debate. That's a side note, though. Thank you for this article. They're saying that Google and Facebook and companies like that, they actually currently sidestep the 330 plus pages of legislation because they're able to build their own global network infrastructure with peer providers. So according to the Daily Wire, what Google's doing now is using the 330 plus pages of regulation to actually stifle its competition, because unless you're a Google, unless you're a Facebook, unless you have millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars for servers and to set up all this software and hardware and infrastructure, you're not going to be able to sidestep the net neutrality rules. But Google has so much money, power, and control that net neutrality doesn't even apply to them because they found a loophole by building their own global network infrastructure. That's what Daily Wire is saying. I don't doubt that it's happening. It sounds very likely, especially if they're like, whoa, net neutrality is going to really tilt the scales, when Facebook, Twitter, and Google are the ones that are completely lopsidedly tilting the scales already. These are three things to think about that you're going to see almost nowhere in mainstream media. All of the things I said, and all of them, I mean, at least the first two are completely true. And, as far as the Daily Wire one, I allow and implore you to do more research to see what your opinion is. But the three things to remember before I get into the popular, net neutrality is great, we got to save it. Three things to remember is, one, it started in 2015, so it's not been here for the entirety of the internet. The internet existed beforehand, and the free market did decently at least to this point. Two, it was 332 pages. So in my opinion, of course this will never happen because this is too honest, this is too fair, this is too accurate, this is too real, but it should be a page long and like 2 sentences long. If the big thing that everyone's worried about, they're like, oh man, if net neutrality goes away, then service providers are going to start jacking up certain traffic to make it go really fast, and then they're going to start lowering certain traffic to make it go really slow. Okay, if that's what net neutrality means to you, write that on a piece of paper and pass that as legislation. You won't do that because most politicians are snakes. They do this thing, net neutrality, and then they pass a 332 page. Doesn't have to be 332 pages. That's like when people, Anomaly, I want to sign you to a management, man. I really see your potential. Okay, cool. And the thing is like 10 pages long. And I'm like, what is all that? I mean, I don't even need a lawyer. I can read what this says, and it's saying too much. I'm like, let's make it 2 paragraphs. And they're like, no, we don't want it. Of course you don't want it because you're trying to rip me off. So I don't sign many deals. Same thing with this, 332 pages. It's ridiculous. Write it on a piece of paper. Don't do that. 2, Ajit Pai said that Twitter is a complete hypocrite, which they totally are. They are the alt-left. They are the counter to the alt-right. In some cases, even more fringe and even more ridiculous. So they are absolute hypocrites. And the Daily Wire says that Google doesn't even comply by net neutrality because they have so much money that they can create their own infrastructure to sidestep the whole regulation. And now for the popular opinion, of course, is very simple. What I just said is people think that if net neutrality leaves, that the service providers will have some internet traffic going really, really fast, some internet traffic going slow. And of course, this would be an absolute disaster of the free internet, even more disastrous than it already is. In my opinion, between Twitter, Facebook, and Google, like I always say, it's completely disastrous. They have a viewpoint that's dishonest, that's borderline dangerous, and borderline, radical in some fringe cases, that they jam down people's throats every day. But if they were allowed to jack up certain traffic and lower certain traffic, then that's very, very bad. Like, they're already censoring like InfoWars and conservatives and whatnot already on all their platforms. So if, according to the people who want to keep and protect net neutrality, the argument is, well, they could further jack that up, and Alex Jones's his numbers will completely crawl, and then they'll be flying off the scales, like the Verizons and the Comcast and whatnot, and their partners and their conglomerates. So I'm still learning, I'm still open, I'm still listening, but what it seems to me, anytime you hear one side of a story and that's all it is, and net neutrality is great, there's always something fishy. So I'm not saying that repealing it is a great idea, and I do want to say that the debate is very torn. I would say almost all liberals and progressives, like 90+% of liberals and progressives, if not more, they support net neutrality. They want to keep net neutrality. They think the Obama regulations are great and they're saving the internet. I would say even amongst conservatives, the opinions that are the perspective that I just said earlier is even unpopular amongst conservatives and libertarians. There's a lot of libertarians and conservatives who agree with what the Daily Wire said and agree with what I and the G Pie just said before, but there's like about half, or maybe more or less, conservatives and libertarians that say, no, this is disastrous even for me. I'm all for the free market, but don't get rid of net neutrality, because without the neutrality of the net, for lack of a better, more creative term, it will be able to disproportionately skew web traffic to certain websites and in certain places, and it will disproportionately elevate it to certain companies. But like I said, the Daily Wire is claiming that Google is allowed to do that already. They say that they have their own infrastructure, so if they want packets to load faster or slower on certain pages, they can do that. And I do want to say, regardless of whether you think net neutrality is great or it could go away, I do want to say that nothing right now is neutral about the net. Google has almost a complete domination on the search engine field, and I won't say it's a monopoly, but I mean, they earned it, I guess. They just have a better service than all the other search engines, but they take like 90+% of search engine web traffic, and they do censor their content. They're already shifting the scales. Like I always say, people like me, or people like Alex Jones, or people like, holistic healers of sorts, anytime that they start going up in the search engines, I've seen it. It was in Congress, or it was in, I don't know, some sort of political arena a month ago. They're complaining to the judge. They're like, Judge, like, what's going on? InfoWars is popping up when I search. And they're like, we'll get on that right away. We're sorry that you got to deal with fake news. It's like, InfoWars is not fake news. I'm not saying they're always accurate, but like I always say, I mean, Alex Jones has a lot of truth if you listen to what he's saying, and he's been talking about things for 15 years. A lot of the reason that I'm so, knowledgeable, and I've been so, in the know about what's really going on for the past 10 years is because I've heard him since 2008. And in 2008, Alex Jones said that the Bushes were working with the Bin Laden family, and, that they were an oil conglomerate family. They were never terrorists, and that is true. They are an oil family. You could Wikipedia, it's the first thing that comes up. So a lot of these things that, they claim, they are already shifting the scales. They don't care about the free market. There's nothing free market about Google. Anytime somebody gets high in the search ranks that they don't want to get higher in the search ranks, they switch the algorithm to make them go down. Twitter, if there's somebody left-leaning that's screaming and cursing and being racist and sexist, they have free range. If you're right-leaning and you do the same ignorant stuff, your blue check mark is taken away, or you're banned, or you're suspended. It's happened multiple times. Same thing on Facebook. It's all, and Facebook owns Instagram, Google owns YouTube, Twitter, I don't know, is run by a bunch of, never mind, I already did that in a video, but there's already nothing free or neutral about the internet. So in my opinion, I am unsure where I personally stand. I see both sides of the perspective. I see the perspective, wow, if we let net neutrality leave, then of course service providers could jack up certain traffic. But my solution, of course, it's never going to go through because politics will be politics, but repeal this 332-page monstrosity and write a new one that's like a page or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 pages long that just says what you want to say. Don't let service providers jack up, web traffic. That would be a solution to me. This way, both sides of the spectrum are happy. But I don't doubt for a second that they're already sidestepping these rules. And of course, if Facebook, Google, and Twitter, the 3 most lopsided companies, in my opinion, on the entire web, and unfortunately, they're also 3 of the biggest, if they are supporting net neutrality, and Kamala Harris is supporting net neutrality, and all the Democrats are supporting net neutrality, and the establishment Republicans are supporting net neutrality, basically the kings and queens of not being neutral and not being fair and not listening to people, I would say be skeptical of it. I wouldn't say to believe everything I said and be like, wow, net neutrality is actually terrible, but be skeptical, read both sides, read between the lines, and see what you think. I think there's truth to both sides of the debate, but the most important thing, in my opinion, which will fall by the wayside, I'm sure, like it always does, is that nothing right now is neutral about the net, and I'm very grateful. Facebook has been incredible to me. Twitter has been, for the most part, incredible to me. YouTube has been incredible to me. I am very grateful for all of these platforms, but in the past couple years, if not longer, before maybe I noticed, they are so one-sided, they are so lopsided, and they are part of the problem, just like Ajit Pai says, whether he's right about the net neutrality monstrosity 332-page packet or not. He's 1,000% right that Twitter are #1 hypocrites. He said, when it comes to the free and open internet, Twitter is part of the problem. The company has a viewpoint, and it uses that viewpoint to discriminate. 1,000%. Could not be more right about that. Twitter absolutely discriminates. Facebook, their news section is completely rigged. YouTube, the algorithm's rigged. We learned today that it's so rigged against conservatives and libertarians and honest left-leaning people that they slipped up and forgot 2 million child abuse videos and videos that were in YouTube Kids and Family section that weren't suitable for children. And there were 600 plus videos that were just swimming with predators in the comment section, and YouTube did nothing. So is that a neutral net? What part of the 332 Obama era packet did that stop? Because I don't see anything neutral about YouTube. I don't see anything neutral about Twitter, and I see very little neutral about Facebook. I would say my page has been great, so I can't really complain. They've never censored me. They've never stopped me. I've been able to be successful, and I feel like if Mark Zuckerberg watched this video or somebody from Facebook, it would be hard for them to really feel negatively about me, because I'm not mean, I'm not being dishonest, I'm not screaming obscenities, I'm not being racist, I'm not being xenophobic. I'm actually being the exact opposite and telling them that their companies are guilty of all 3 of those things at some extent. So, just something to think about. So net neutrality, is it what the media is saying? Absolutely not. It's a 10,000% not what they're saying. Is it good? That's for you to determine. Is it bad? That's for you to determine. I don't have a definite answer for you now, but it's 10,000% not what they're saying. Like always, they create the reality, they create the story, they create the thing. Affordable Care Act. Oh yeah, that sounds great on paper. What is it? Is it 1 page of legislation that says, oh, everything's going to be affordable and we'll make sure that it's affordable no matter what? No, it's like some monstrosity, like thousands of pages, companies involved, and next thing you know, there's nothing affordable about the Affordable Care Act. So when it comes to the name net neutrality, I think they had me a little bit fooled for a while, but like with everything, all I have to do is like 15, 20 minutes of research, and I'm like, oh wow, the last 5 years of my life were pretty much a lie. It's very strange how that happens, but it's good to consider it. It's definitely good to have a conversation about it, and it's very unfortunate. Ajit Pai says he's getting a lot of threats and death threats and stuff. It's like, man, people who oppose the free market for lack of, and I'm not even saying that I agree with him because I'm not sure yet, but the people who oppose the free market, they don't know how to have a conversation. They literally just like threaten people and get violent. It's getting ridiculous. And I understand why people would feel that way, but have a little faith in the people. How about this? Before I leave, if net neutrality regulations get taken away and all of a sudden the net becomes this crazy place where certain people's speeds are way up and certain people's speeds are way down, let's all stick together, Republican, Democrat, conservative, libertarian, progressive, and people who just really don't care. Why don't we all stand together and be like, okay, this is enough, and then make a stand, because the internet is a very, very valuable tool for all of us, and it has been a huge part of not only President Trump's success and Bernie Sanders' success and able to break the two-party system like we did this year. Spoiler alert, it's a great year. I don't know what the news is telling you. Oh my God, it's the worst year ever. No, we broke the two-party system in the United States of America. It's the greatest year ever. We have a president talking truth about the media. We have an FCC chairman who's talking truth about social media. So before I curse again, try to keep this one curse-free. It's the greatest year ever. Such a good year, such a good time. Regardless of what happens, whether they keep or get rid of the regulations, let's make a stand if it gets too lopsided. In my opinion, even if they strip the regulations or keep the regulations, it's already way too lopsided. So once again, to me, this seems like a big shiny object that they're lying about, whether it's great or it's not great. And we're missing the big point that the net is very, very lopsided now and needs a little bit of balancing. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys so much for messaging me, telling me to research this. I had a good time doing it, and I think it's crucial. I'm pretty happy with how this video came out. If you would like to donate or sign up to my email list, check the comments section below. I'm going to leave those two links there. Have a good day. Let me know what else you'd like me to talk about, and that's about it. Share or tag somebody in this video who's screaming about net neutrality one way or the other to maybe broaden their horizons a little bit and at least consider it. Like I said, I don't have a big stance on it. I told you both sides. I told you what the packet really is. I told you when it came into place, and the internet was fine before it. You can decide, but it's worth having a conversation and considering before people make it a one-sided conversation, like with pretty much everything. Thank you.